No deal for Mike Evans as the negotiation deadline comes and goes. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this bonus Saturday episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every single day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow us on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs. He is David Harrison at DHarrison82. Credentialed members of the media covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I am the deputy editor of SB Nation's BucsNation.com. David is a staff writer over at BucsGameDay.com, Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation site, covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And we are here with you every Monday through Friday, sometimes Saturday, sometimes Sunday, along with our everydayers. And as always, we want to share our appreciation for your continued support of the show.
Today's episode of Locked On Bucs is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the promo code, all lowercase, LockedOnNFL. All lowercase is not a word. It's just in all lowercase. Locked On NFL is a promo code for a first deposit match up to $100. James, the Locked On Bucs favorite, Yarcho, and David, the not a real Bucs fan, Harrison, coming at you on this live Saturday. Appreciate all of you for coming through. Final season preview coming up in just a little bit. We're going to put our names on some records that we are projecting so you can hold them against us all year long. But we have to talk about the biggest news around the Buccaneers franchise. Thank you, Richard. So the intro video froze on my screen, and I was like, I don't know what's happening, but I'm pretty sure the entire show just collapsed. And then suddenly we're back on your face, and I was like, I have no idea what's going on. So I appreciate that. So I'm glad you guys saw it at least. Mike Evans did not get the offer that he and his agent wanted by the Saturday afternoon, evening deadline. So Mike Evans is going to play this season according to his agent's threats and his demeanor. He's going to play out the final year of his contract and then figure out what's best for him next. And that is obviously going to terrify a whole lot of people.
A little bit.
Mike Evans' wife, possibly one of them, honestly. Like she's lived on and off in Florida for quite a while. You know what I mean? She might like it. But what does it mean for Mike Evans' future? That's really, the first part of this question. Because before we get to the Buccaneers' future, we got to talk about Mike Evans' future. And here's my take on Mike Evans, right? So we all have kind of spent a lot of time trying to read, organizational structures, organizational behavior, and Mike Evans' body language, right? Especially when he's asked about this whole thing. And I will agree with most that his body language, not good. Not good. His body language definitely reads like a man who feels disrespected, and some of this might come back to, look, every time it happens, certain people in the media like to point out that Mike Evans restructuring his contract to create more cap space for the Buccaneers isn't Mike Evans taking anything less than he's already due. He actually gets a little bit more money up front. And I think there is some validity to that, sure. But there's also some validity to being willing to be flexible because people have to understand, like, players, more than anything, they want security, right? That's what this whole thing is about. That's what Mike has talked about. He wants security. Well, when I agree to let you give me, so if I've got 10 million due, guaranteed, you have to pay me $10 million over the next 3 years, period. And I agree to let you give me 5 million of my guarantees 3 years down the road this year. Yeah, I get my 15 million this year, but I also know I just weakened my security 3 years down the road because now if you cut me, those guarantees are already paid out. That's less of a hit on you. And, I'm talking small fries compared to Mike Evans' contract. But I think when we talk about being willing to help a team, taking guarantees early removes those guarantees later, right? Which then makes it easier for a team to potentially move on from you. So it's not without risk to agree to restructure your contract like that. You're Mike Evans, so you can want to believe that that's not what the Buccaneers are doing. That's not what they would do and all those things. So you're willing to do it. But I do want to point out that being willing to restructure your deal as much as he has is a benefit to the team. So whether it's, he's not putting himself on a cross for all to see, got it, you know what I mean? But he is still doing something to benefit the team. And then you look at the production, and you look at the production with not Tom Brady quarterbacks. I don't blame Mike Evans for being disrespected or feeling disrespected, James, because I feel like he is being disrespected. And I feel like more than anybody, Jason Light should have a little bit more, I would say should have a little bit more respect in the general sense, but the latest reports are they didn't even make him an offer. And
right.
To me, that is almost the most disrespectful thing, is you're not even conversing on a deal. Like that to me is worse than even coming in below it. Because at least if you're coming below it, you're trying to make a deal with me. You just may not want to give me everything I want. That's part of the negotiating process. You're not even negotiating. To me, that's the biggest disrespect here.
Well, and I go back to the statement from the agent that I talked about on the show a week ago, and he commended Jason Light, and I'm speaking about Derek Gilmore, Mike Evans' agent. He commended Jason Light. He commended Mike Greenberg twice. Twice he called out the ownership. So I don't think this is a Jason Light problem. I don't think this is a Mike Greenberg problem. I think this is a Glazer problem. And I don't think the Glazers want to shell out money for a 30-year-old receiver. So what I think this is going to boil down to, and I'll make this kind of quick, as far as his status, I don't think it's over between Mike Evans and the Buccaneers. I think this is, if we're talking about this relationship in terms of a marriage, they need to go to counseling. It's not over. This is salvageable. We're not citing irreconcilable differences, but there needs to be some counseling here. There needs to be some mending of the fences. Whether it helps or hurts, I do think we're looking at a Mike Evans franchise tag next year. I truly do. I don't think Jason Light wants to let him out the door. I don't think in his heart of hearts Mike Evans wants to leave.
Yeah.
So I think they slap the franchise tag on him, try to get that extended negotiating window to try to get things done. Or maybe Mike says, you know what, franchise me, and then I'm leaving. You're not going to do it again. I'm not signing with you. This is it. But as far as this season is concerned, I think we're going to see as motivated of a Mike Evans as we've ever seen. And just fingers crossed, he doesn't deal with what Chris Godwin dealt with heading into, potentially hitting free agency, and you have a devastating injury that not only hurts his open market value, but also ends his streak. You don't want to see that happen. Mike Evans has been a constant. He's been one of the best players in franchise history. He is arguably the best draft pick the Buccaneers have ever made. He's been valuable and loved in the community. You don't want to see anything bad happen to him. I just hope it's not the last year that we see him in a Buccaneers uniform.
Absolutely. And yeah, I do think that because of the history, because of the connection, that Mike will come back to the table at the end of the season. You know what I mean? But I think honestly with this, I mean, if he balls out, like there's no hometown discount. You know what I mean? Like he'll come back to the table, but you're not getting a hometown discount. Now it's time to pay the piper. We had a question from David that he heard that 45% of the Bucs salary cap was on IR. That's insanity. 4.56% of the Buccaneers salary cap is on IR. So whoever said 45%, hopefully, or 42%, hopefully they were saying 4.2 and you just heard 42.
Yeah, or they, if it was written out, they just forgot to hit the decimal point.
Maybe, and that's according to Spot Track, by the way. So, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the Mike Evans story isn't done. Now, the second question we have to answer, I'm going to do this really quickly. Is he going to get traded? No, he's not going to get traded. The Buccaneers are not going to trade Mike Evans midseason. He's going to finish the year as a Buccaneer, and we'll see what happens after that.
Exactly. All right, we are taking one final look at the Buccaneers 2023 season that kicks off tomorrow against the Minnesota Vikings. That is next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You don't have to choose between better hair growth and your health. Nutrafol provides a whole body health approach for men that promotes healthier hair. No drugs, no compromises, just better hair. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement, clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements use physician-formulated, natural, science-backed ingredients. Their drug-free, patented technology provides consistent, reliable results without compromising your sexual health. Go to Nutrafol.com/men to take their hair health wellness quiz. Identify causes of your thinning hair, and Nutrafol will give you a personalized plan for better hair health through whole body wellness. Take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair for a limited time. Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men, spelled Nutrafol.com/men, and enter promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code LOCKEDONNFL.
Thanks again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or view every day and today and every day and every dayers. Appreciate you coming through. You guys got thrown in the comments by Adam. Hang on a second, Adam. Be sure you come back tomorrow after the game. James is going to be live following the Buccaneers upset win over the Minnesota Vikings. So make sure you're subscribed, turn on those notifications because James is going to go live as soon as he can following that game. In the meantime, Locked On Ultimate NFL season preview is here. A 7-episode extravaganza bringing you opinions, analysis, and plenty of debate from all 32 of our Locked On NFL hosts. You can watch James Yarcho go round for round with the other NFC South hosts as they pick on him mercilessly. Catch every episode on the Locked On NFL channel on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Before we dive into the season, no, Adam, I am not going to try hair growth because this is by design. This is all on purpose. And I promise you that by Wednesday, it will be out to here. So no, I do not need it. However, from those I know who do need it, they say that it's pretty good and that you should try it as well. So if you try it or anybody tries it, by all means, let us know how it goes as well. So James,
I find it interesting that when promoting the post-game live reaction episode, you said the Buccaneers upset win when you very clearly picked the Vikings to win that game.
That doesn't listen. So let's be real for a second. I always want to talk about Buccaneers winning football. Period.
That's true. That is true.
There's never going to be a day where I say, yay, let's talk about negativity. Like when Jameis was here, didn't want to talk about it. When Cutter was here, didn't want to talk about it. When everything, when Ryan Jensen got hurt, didn't want to talk about it. Never want to talk about negativity. So even if I tell you honestly that I feel like the Buccaneers are going to lose, I would be dancing on the roof to come back and talk about me being wrong 100% of the time. So
yeah, if I picked the Bucs to lose, I would much rather have people remind me in the comments that I was wrong than to yell at me for being right. I get it. I just had to give you a little bit of grief because I couldn't yesterday.
No, I got you. Same thing with like Trask guys. You know what I mean? Like if I bag on Trask and he comes out and balls out, by all means, throw it at me. I'm happy to receive it. Adam, thank you for calling me beautiful. You two are beautiful. All Bucs fans are beautiful because James and I get to live our dream doing this show and covering this team, and it's because of you guys. So we love every single one of you. What we don't necessarily love is the first 4 games of the Buccaneers season because they've got some tough ones, right? Week 1 in Minnesota. It's obviously going to be a tough environment. Minnesota fans like their skull. They like their horns. I don't know if that's what it's called. And the Minnesota Vikings had 5 more wins than the Buccaneers did in 2022. And they've added Jordan Addison, pretty good wide receiver out of USC. You may have heard of him. If not, you're about to hear of him in week 1 against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Then they've got the Chicago Bears, who you would look at as a winnable game. 5 fewer wins last year than the Buccaneers had, but they've got a lot of upgrades on defense, and they've added DJ Moore, who I know NFC South fans like to laugh when you hear any Carolina Panther being spoken about in a good light. But I personally believe DJ Moore a better receiver than he gets credit for, largely because of the quarterbacks that he's been playing with. Mike Evans knows a thing or two about that because he's seen a thing or two about that. Week 3 against Philadelphia Eagles, defending NFC champs. I mean, there's not a lot more to say. 6 more wins, lots of turnover on the roster, but they did a fairly good job on paper of bringing good players in to replace good players out. New offensive coordinator, new defense coordinator. So, I mean, look, the Eagles are a question mark. Like, make no mistake about that. But that question mark looks like it's made pretty solidly like gold. You know what I'm saying? Week 4 at NOLA, always a tough game. One fewer win last year than the Buccaneers had. Lots of changes, and not lots of changes like the way the Eagles had, but some wholesale changes in some pretty important spots, including the quarterback position, James. So that's the first 4 games. A pretty interesting slate of games for the Buccaneers to go through. Only one divisional matchup, and it's still, I mean, every single one of those games almost is must-see TV / measuring stick.
Yeah, I'll run through these quick one by one. You know, you bring up Minnesota had 5 more wins, but you have talked numerous times on this show about how they won 13 games. Were they really a 13-win team kind of thing? I mean, they were 11-0 in the regular season in 1-score games, and then they lose a 1-score game in the playoffs to Daniel Jones and the New York Giants. Like, this is a winnable game. It's a tough environment, don't get me wrong, but this is a winnable game. And when we did our schedule release prediction win-loss stuff, I had this as a loss for the Buccaneers. I've since changed my mind. I think the Buccaneers are going into Minnesota and winning this game because, yes, Jordan Addison, Alexander Madison, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, they're all problems. You know what else is a problem? They're secondary because they stink. Over to Chicago. 5 fewer wins. Yeah, okay, the defense did some things. DJ Moore, still no upgrade at quarterback for DJ Moore because Justin Fields is trash unless he's running the ball. Not scared of Chicago in the least. You can OHIO all you want. Justin Fields stinks as a quarterback. Great running back, stinks as a quarterback. Eagles, that's a loss. I'm not even going to sit here and pretend that I think the Buccaneers have a chance against the Eagles. That is a loss. That is a double-digit loss on national television. And against New Orleans and our everydayers, our every livers, as I started calling the people in the chat on yesterday's episode, you can call me out for it because I just said on WTSP Wednesday with Evan Klosky that I'm not going to pick the Buccaneers to lose to the Saints this year. Spoiler alert. Chances are I'm picking them to lose week 4 at New Orleans. I have them splitting the season series against New Orleans and against Atlanta. We'll get into that a little bit later, but I think the Buccaneers are looking at a really, really good shot at a 2-2 start, which heading into the bye, which the bye in week 5 stinks, but I think that's about as good as you could ask for given the circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, I think a 500 start while you're getting your feet on the ground and your offensive coordinator is getting his feet on the ground and
your head coach refusing to name captains.
And your head coach is refusing to name team captains. Yeah, I mean, that's not a bad. I mean, I think I would call that like par for the course. You know what I mean? I think that's the best way to kind of describe it. It's not a birdie, it's not a bogey. It's par for the course, and you feel good. You know, if you get par, you get to play another hole. I think I don't know golf, but I think that fits. So let's get into regular season projections here now. Mm-hmm. And this is where I'm going to make some people mad. But do me a favor before you blast me in the comments. Let me finish what I have to say. Overall, I have the Buccaneers finishing 9-8. So that's the headline. I've got the Buccaneers right now finishing 9-8. And I think the plan, James, right, is we're going to do this episode every 4 weeks, right? So like after 4 games, we'll come back and the Bucs are 2-2, 1-3, 3-0, 4-0, whatever they are after 4 weeks. They can't be 3-0. But anyway, and we'll update. You know what I mean? We'll learn and we'll update our opinions as we continue to learn. That's how everything works, right? But right now, I'm going 9-8, and I think that could get them a playoff spot. It could also put them right on the edge of making the playoffs and put them on the outside looking in. Where I'm going to make all of you mad is the first 4 games. I have the Buccaneers going 1-3 in the first 4 games. I can't even spit it out cleanly. I have them losing at Minnesota in week 1, obviously, because of crossover. I said that. I do have them losing against the Chicago Bears. I also have them losing to the Philadelphia Eagles, but I have them winning against the New Orleans Saints. The biggest reason is I've kind of already said this. I almost look at this Buccaneer squad like I look at last year's Jacksonville Jaguars squad, where you got a newish quarterback in Jacksonville. It wasn't his first year, but newish quarterback. You got a new scheme. You got new pieces. They're going to need some time, and you're going up against teams that are fairly familiar with each other. Like Chicago, outside of DJ Moore, they're fairly familiar with each other, and they're fairly confident. Their defense is going to be a little bit of questionable. Minnesota has a lot of continuity there. The Eagles have a lot of continuity, even with some of the turnover they've had. So I just feel like you're going to go up against teams that are just better equipped this early in the season. So I think you could see them stumble coming out the gates. But if you have a 1-3 start and a 9-8 finish, that means the later half of your season, just like the Jaguars had last year, is a lot stronger. And you're going to see this team continue to grow, continue to get better. And I actually have them, James, from week 9 to 12 going 3-1. The only loss on the road to the San Francisco 49ers, which, you know what, a team in this state, you can't really get mad at that. And then you end up, like I said, 9-8. Maybe you're in the playoffs. Maybe you're on the outside looking in. But it's a much stronger finish than it is a start. So if you're going to hate me for the start, love me for the finish.
Yeah, I can absolutely see things playing out that way where they do struggle to build that chemistry and get off to the right footing. But once they hit their stride, they can actually start moving forward. I'm going to give my season projection, and then we are going to hand out some awards based on how we see the season shaking out. That is coming up next here on Locked On Bucs. And this episode, of course, is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is really simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Prize Picks offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. And now Prize Picks offers Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. This week, I am going with Rachaad White to go for more than 47.5 rush yards. Joe Mixon, more than 19.5 receiving yards. Kyle Pitts, fewer than 37.5 receiving yards. Joe Burrow, fewer than 265.5 passing yards. Jalen Hurts, more than 1.5 passing touchdowns. And Nick Chubb to go more than a half of a total touchdown. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Wrapping things up here on a bonus Saturday edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast. Thank you all for joining us on this college football Saturday. We're going to get you out of here before Bama and Texas kick off, though. Don't you worry. David, I'm going to jump over to my season projection. When we did this, when the schedule came out, I had said that I had this team hovering around that like 7-9 to 9-7 area. And we'd even talked about a couple of games that we viewed as coin flips and what the record could go up to if we gave those coin flips wins and what they could go down to if we gave those coin flips losses. I went through and I did game by game prediction again while we were getting ready for this show. And I have this team at 10-7. And nice. I don't feel great about it. I feel like that's too many wins. Yeah. I would have been more comfortable in that 8 or that 9-8 range that you had. But, you know, there's going to be some crazy things that happen. We know that the Buccaneers are going to win a game or two that they have no business winning. They're going to lose a game or two that they really have no business losing because that's the way of the National Football League. So I go through, I have them 2-2 to start the season, as I mentioned. But then after that 2-2 start, I have them winning 4 out of their next 5 games. I have them beating Detroit. Yes, beating Detroit, who just beat the Chiefs, when in reality, the Chiefs beat themselves because Kadarius Toney has brick hands. I have them beating the Falcons.
The Gators beat the Chiefs.
Huh?
The Gators beat the Chiefs.
There you go. I have them beating Detroit, beating Atlanta, losing to Buffalo, winning at Houston, and then beating the Tennessee Titans. That puts their record at that point at 6-3. That is a great start for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. But then I get later in the schedule and all of a sudden I have them losing 3 games in a row in December at Atlanta, at Green Bay versus Jacksonville. I think the Buccaneers are a more talented team than Green Bay, but I've marked that as kind of the game that they should win, that they're going to lose, just like I've marked Detroit as the game they should lose, but they're going to win. So all of that is to say that the Buccaneers are going to be a wild card team.
Well, I mean, look, again, I've got them going 9-8. That's a winning record. And I understand some Buccaneers fans still feel like a winning record in this circumstance is a down season. You know what I'm saying? But if we're being honest, guys, Baker Mayfield is on his 4th team in 2 seasons. And this offensive line is not highly regarded anywhere in the National Football League. If this team goes 9-8, 10-7, I mean, Dave Canales might get head coaching offers or at least interviews. Now, I don't think he'll get the job because this is his first full year running his own offense. You know what I'm saying? But if this team wins 11 games or 12 games, it's not just going to be defense. It's going to be offense. And Dave Canales might actually get a head coaching job somewhere. So I think we have to keep everything in perspective. Like the Tom Brady days are gone. The 3-year run of playoffs happened. Yes, but that is not who the Buccaneers are anymore. There's a lot of drastic changes happening within this roster. So 9 wins, 10 wins is not a negative. That's definitely a positive. And trust me, you put those record projections on a lot of other people's radars and other beats, and they're not going to think that we're being negative. But let's get to some awards. So we both think this team is a winning team. And if you're right and they get better faster, that's really the difference between our projection. You see them getting better faster than I do. And if they get better faster and they beat the Chicago Bears and Ohio State legend Justin Fields, then that puts my record up to 10 wins as well. So we both have this team ballparked in the same area. So that being said, if this team does what I think they're going to do, my offensive player of the year is that quarterback who's playing for his 5th team in 2 years, is Baker Mayfield, because this team, great defense or no, you guys know, Buccaneers fans know this. We've seen really good defenses in this franchise, and they still don't win almost any games. If this team is going to pull off a winning record in this season with this schedule, Baker Mayfield is going to have to play above average. That's quite anticlimactic, but above average play from Baker Mayfield is going to amaze a lot of people who have not been looking at Tampa Bay football.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I do think that Baker's going to have to be on top of things this season if the Bucs are going to get to the win projections that you and I have, but he's going to need some help. Can't do it all himself. And my offensive player of the year, if the Bucs reach that plateau, it's going to be running back Rachaad White. I've talked a lot this week about Rachaad White and what I think his involvement is going to be in this offense. I've compared him to Kenneth Walker III from last year's Seattle Seahawks and how much he was involved in the run game, in the pass game, how often he was getting touches when he was on the field. Rachaad White has to take this opportunity that he's getting as the RB1, and he has to keep it, because I've been listening to a lot of different shows and a lot of you know that I'm a big fan of the fantasy footballers. They're talking already that they think Sean Tucker will be the number 1 running back on this team before the midway point. They love what Sean Tucker does, and outside of Buccaneers fandom, there's not a lot of people sold on Rachaad White. He's got to have a massive year and help out Dave Canales and Baker Mayfield in this offense. So
100%. By the way, we did absolutely hit 5,000 subscribers on YouTube, so we greatly appreciate all of you for contributing to that. King Snake, you don't have to apologize. I don't know how long you've been listening to the show, but every day, as you already know, we already say this, agreeing is not a requisite to watch this show. So
that's right.
I don't have to apologize. I have zero interest. I have zero problem with people who disagree. And you know what I mean? That's part of discourse. It's part of conversation.
So, and Mike in the chat, got to throw this up real quick. The offense should create a lot of opportunities for Otten. Yes. Cade Otten. Let's go. My defensive player of the year, if the Bucs are going to reach this level, should be no surprise to anyone. He has been the most consistent, the most constant, the most reliable player on the defensive side of the ball for this football team for a decade, and it's Lavonte David. Lavonte David has to continue to be Lavonte David. He has to be that leader in the middle of the field. He has to go sideline to sideline. He's got to create opportunities, force fumbles, get sacks, get interceptions, fire up that defense. He's got to be that dude one more time for this Buccaneers team to be able to really spark the defense and lead them to really strong performance this season.
Yeah, absolutely. My defensive player of the year. I mean, again, every day, if you've been listening to our shows, you already know how high I am on Antoine Winfield Jr. this year. And I feel like this is going to be a year where he really kind of puts himself on the larger map, right? A lot of people give him some of his flowers and all that stuff, but I want to see him get more flowers from the national media, more so than just the local media. And I feel like this could be a season that he does it. A lot of people talk about second years being that breakout year. But for Antoine Winfield Jr., because of the things that this Buccaneers defense has needed him to do to help them plug holes here, plug holes there, I think this really could be his breakout season. It might come a little bit late, but he's going to use that experience, use that knowledge that he's had since he's gotten to the NFL. And I really think this is going to be a big year for Antoine Winfield Jr. Rookie of the year for me, James. I'm going with a little bit of a sleeper, but honestly, so are you. Bigger sleeper. I'm going with wide receiver Trey Palmer. You know what I mean? And I think that the low hanging fruit would be the first round draft pick, right, even though he did suffer that little bit of an injury and all that. But I'm going Trey Palmer. When you look at Dave Canales' offenses historically, receivers lead his teams in touchdown receptions. And granted, he hasn't been the OC for all of those and all that stuff, so you have to take that with a grain of salt. But he comes from an offense that likes to produce through their receivers. They have had some good running backs, production seasons and all that stuff, but Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, those are the kinds of guys that are producing. When I look at this roster, who's the most Tyler Lockett like? To me, it's Trey Palmer, and he's going to get the burn on top of it. I'm not saying Trey is going to have a Tyler Lockett season, but as a rookie, I feel like he could have an above average season because of the way that Dave Canales designs his offense.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And look, I've talked a lot about Rachaad White on this show. I've talked about him a lot all offseason. He can't do it by himself. When I brought up the Kenneth Walker III comparisons, I've talked about how he was only on the field for 53% of snaps. That leaves another 47% of snaps, and they still need somebody reliable that can run the ball, that can catch the ball, that can pick up blitzes. And my rookie of the year is going to be running back Sean Tucker. I think everything that this kid does is fantastic. And he 100% would have been, a late day 2, early day 3 draft pick if it wasn't for a heart condition that kind of kept him out. The medicals weren't great. There's a reason they gave him guaranteed money, and it's because Dave Canales pointed him out and said, look, I want this guy in my offense because he fits exactly what I want to do. Tucker's going to get a lot of opportunity to shine in this offense, and he's got to help out Rachaad White when Rachaad needs a breather. Finally, for the ones that you and I are both doing, team MVP. So I know I didn't pick him for Offensive Player of the Year, but if this team is going to win 9, 10 games, be in the playoff hunt, the MVP has to be Baker Mayfield. And it's not just about the stats. I'm not saying that in order for Baker to be the MVP, he needs to have 30 touchdowns and 12 interceptions and 5,000 yards. It's about the leadership. It's about the commitment. It's about the drive. It's about everything from the moment he wakes up in the morning to the moment he goes to bed, doing what he can to put himself and his teammates in the best position to succeed. We all love the Baker Mayfield chip on the shoulder. It's got to translate to leadership on and off the field. He's got to show the world that he can still do it.
Yeah, 100%. He's got to show people who have talked down about him, like me, over his career, that we're stupid and wrong. My team MVP is going to be Vita Vea because we all want to see a better pass rush from this defense, and there are specific players: Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, Logan Hall, Shaq Barrett in his return from injury. Granted, but I firmly believe if you're going to get better, you got to stay strong where you were already strong. Vita Vea was already strong. He's been strong. He's got to stay strong, and I think that it all starts with him. Again, it's not about stats. He may not hit the sack numbers that he hit last year, and hopefully that's a good thing because other guys are cleaning up those sacks and not waiting for Vita Vea to get through the trash and get to the quarterback. But Vita Vea, it's going to be one of those, it's almost like a smart joke where you really have to kind of think about it. Like you're going to have to watch the tape and watch the replays and see the impact that Vita Vea is making, because hopefully the stats aren't going to be there because, again, he's going to facilitate for everybody else, and the NFL doesn't give assists for sacks. Getting into a most likely, we're going to do one most likely, two. And this category we're going to do, I'm going to do is most likely to score the most touchdowns. Again, going back to Dave Canales' experience with the Seattle Seahawks and how much wide receivers dominate the production in those systems. You would be surprised if you go back and look how many times Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf almost have identical stat lines. Like it's actually a little bit weird because they're very different types of receivers. But when there is an advantage in the scoring production, it goes to the guy who's a little bit quicker, a little bit faster. That is Chris Godwin. So most likely to score the most touchdowns for this Buccaneers offense for me this season, wide receiver Chris Godwin.
That's why I drafted him in my fantasy league. My most likely to lead the team in takeaways. And for me, there was really only one choice, and it's Devin White. I want the guy that can get interceptions, that is going to chase down ball carriers and be able to force fumbles. I want the guy that is going to come on blitzes and get after quarterbacks and force fumbles there. I want the guy that is in the middle of everything all the time. And we know Devin White, the whole saga, wants to be traded, wants the mega deal, wants this, wants that. He's in a contract year too. He, Antoine, Mike Evans, a lot of contracts. They need to come to fruition. So whether it's with Tampa or whether it's with another team, Devin White is going to be at his peak all year long to maximize this opportunity to get his bag. And he can do so by being one of the premier defensive players in the league when it comes to takeaways in the 2023 season. I'm about to go bold prediction. Are you ready for this, David? Double-digit takeaways for Devin White. Between fumbles and interceptions, he is going to have double-digit takeaways.
Nice. You know what? I'll go bold prediction. Vita Vea is going to have half the sacks he had last year, but the Buccaneers defense is going to have twice. I don't even know if that's possible. I didn't even look it up. I'm just throwing numbers out there.
They had like 47 sacks last season as a team.
We're going 94 or 40. Yeah, 94. Yeah, 94 sacks. We're going 94 sacks. Let's do it.
Vita Vea is going to have half of his.
Let's go to 100. Go 100. Shaq Barrett for 60.
Yeah, there we go. I was going to say Vita Vea gets half the sacks that he did, but Joe Tryon-Shoyinka breaks Michael Strahan's fake record. All right.
Fake record. Like it.
That is going to do it for this episode. Thank you guys so much. Our everydayers, our every livers, thank you for joining us here on this bonus episode on a Saturday. Don't forget, I will be back tomorrow live to react to the Buccaneers and Vikings Week 1 matchup. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel and you have those notifications set so that you know exactly when it's going to happen, because it's not really going to be a set time all year long. It's going to be as soon as I can get to it. That's where it's going to be. So we have to adjust for the start time. I have to adjust for my son's hockey schedule. So make sure you're subscribed to YouTube. You have the notifications on so you know as soon as I am about to go live. So thank you so much for joining us right here on Locked On Bucs. Check out everything David is doing over at BucsGameDay.com. Check out what I'm doing over at BucsNation.com. Follow everything on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarcho_Bucs, and at DHarrison82. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding weekend. The NFL season is here. It's time. Where was my on that? Fire the cannons. There it is. We want to thank you so much for joining us right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.